There are some late arrivals. I just want to make sure everybody that's here has had a chance to sign up if they wish to speak. Has everybody that wishes to speak had a chance to sign up? Okay, just checking. Okay, it is 4:30. I'm calling the meeting to order. I'd like to acknowledge that the District of Tofino operates within the territory of the Tla-o-qui-aht First Nation, Tla-o-qui-aht Notice to attendees that the meeting is being video recorded and will be published on the District of Tofino's YouTube channel. I do want to advise electronic attendees out in Zoom land that if you want to sign up for public comment on the agenda items, that it would be a good idea to do that soon. I just want to ask you, for those people who do want to sign up on Zoom, please use the question and answer function on Zoom. You'll see that at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And please write your name, full name, your residential address, and the agenda item that you wish to speak to. That is for Zoom attendees. Let's see. And I'll approve the meeting location. If there is no objection, through unanimous consent, I move that pursuant to section 15 of the District of Tofino Meeting Procedure Bylaw number 1229, 2016 as amended, the January 24th, 2023 regular meeting be held electronically via Zoom and live broadcasted on the District of Tofino's YouTube channel, and that the facility provided for the public to watch and hear the meeting be located at Municipal Hall 380 Campbell Street in Tofino, BC. Seeing no objection, that motion is carried. Also, through unanimous consent, if there are no objections, I'll move that the January 24th, 2023 regular council agenda be adopted. Seeing no objection, that motion is carried. We have consent agenda. And just a note for those who are new, our consent agenda, we put things on that we do not foresee debate. So that they are for the public record. If there are no objections, I'll move through unanimous consent that items 4.1 to 4.3 of the consent agenda on the regular council meeting held January 24th, 2023 be approved and received. Seeing no objection, that motion is carried. Now we get to public comment on agenda items. Now we have 4 people signed up on our paper sheet. Do we have anybody on Zoom?
Thank you, Mary Law. We do have one person on Zoom that signed up for public comment period, and then we have quite a few members in attendance. So I might just call now. So if there are any members of the public in attendance electronically via Zoom, if you would like to add your name to the list for a public comment period, just use the Q&A function, state your name, your address, and which agenda item you'd like to speak to. So I'll call 3 times to give you an opportunity. Calling once, calling twice, calling a 3rd time, and we have not had any extra submissions, so just one.
Just one submission. Okay, great. And just because we gave Zoom people sort of a longer deadline, do I open this up again for? I'm going to do it actually because some of you, I saw some of you a little late. I grabbed this just before I start the meeting. So is anybody in attendance here who would like to sign up for public comment? Now is a chance. Once, twice, thrice. Okay, thank you. Then tell you what, let's go to Miss Floody on Zoom first, and then I will direct the item to the attendees. Miss Floody, are you there?
Yes, hi.
Could you just state your name?
Yep. Hey, so my name is Eileen Floody. I reside at 250 First Street. Just to say I'm expressing support for the letter by Chris Lowther on significant trees. Might point out that the district still hasn't activated a tree bylaw, and trees continue to be cut down with no oversight or review, almost as we speak. And I hope that the plans for the improvements for the tennis pickleball courts do not include any tree removal or damage, because there are trees quite close to the fence line on both the village green site and on private land abutting the tennis courts. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Ms. Floody. Okay, we're going to move on to Chris Neufeld. Chris, you can just come to the podium. You can state your full name, your address of the agenda item you're going to speak to.
All right.
And you have 2 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Neufeld, and I am the owner and general manager of Tofino Brewing Company. I reside at 137 Daphne Place. I'm here today to speak about agenda item 10.7, which is a TUP to apply for continued use of our 2 provincially licensed outdoor patio areas. The patio areas were introduced in the spring of 2020 to help with COVID-related service restrictions. And throughout that period, they basically saved our business, allowing us to stay open in a limited capacity. So we've operated these patio areas for close to 3 years now without any issue or any complaints whatsoever. They greatly improve the experience that we can offer, providing us with some open air seating, allowing us to spread out groups better and improve physical distance. Just to be clear, we're not requesting any expansion of service capacity at all. Our capacity remains capped at 70 people, and every aspect of the brewery remains the same. So the vast majority of our square footage remains devoted to manufacturing, and the patios don't reduce our parking at all. They just occupy space that's otherwise unused. So these patios, they already have provincial liquor board approval, and my hope today is to align those provincial approvals with local approval through this TUP as a short-term solution, and then follow up with a more formal zoning application as a more thorough long-term solution afterwards. So thanks very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Sarah Watt.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Sarah Watt. I'm the Pacific Rim Well Festival Coordinator, and I reside at 568 Gibson Street. I'm here today to support the events permit for agenda item 10.5, which is the opening event on Friday, the March 17th at Community Hall. Just to say, I'm working closely with Sophie Loam of Tofino Jazz Festival, who has many years of experience in live music events and event planning. And we already have plans in place for security, transportation, and staff for this event. We feel it's important to offer live music events for our community and visitors, especially during the shoulder season. And right now there are limited venues, if not any, for this type of event. And we believe that the community hall will be a suitable venue. You can put your trust in us as the planning committee that we will ensure the event is a safe space, and we will highly respect the liquor bylaw. Together as an established organization and special events planner within the community, it's important to us that we do hold ourselves accountable, and we look forward to providing the community with a fun and wholesome event. Thank you.
Thank you. Amarita Adair.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Amarita Adair, and I am the chair of Surfrider Pacific Rim. I would like to respectfully acknowledge the unceded territory of the Tla-o-qui-aht First Nation, where our offices are located at 1084 Pacific Rim Highway. I am here to speak to you today about agenda item 9.3. Surfrider Pacific Rim is a not-for-profit, volunteer-based organization dedicated to the enjoyment and preservation of the world's oceans, beaches, and waves. Our recently launched paid membership base now has 24 members, and our volunteer network, over 100 people, runs deep, with many residents and visitors joining on our popular beach cleans. Surfrider Pacific Rim would like to state that we strongly oppose any commercial endeavors that would affect access to the coastline. Approval of this application sets a dangerous precedent that multiple parts of the beach can be commercialized. If this application is approved, there's nothing stopping other businesses from applying for similar structural setups. We could see a future where beaches are overrun with chairs, tables, umbrellas, and private dining experiences. North Chesterman Beach is an actively used public site enjoyed daily by many residents and visitors. Shell Beach, as it is, has almost no public access, which raises questions around equal beach access. Surfrider Pacific Rim strongly advocates for equitable beach access within cities and municipalities. Surfrider Pacific Rim believes this application is inconsistent with the guiding principle of the official community plan to protect the natural environment, including shorelines and beaches. Strongly urge council to write a letter of opposition to Daniel Sholey, Authorization Specialist at South Island Natural Resources District, Ministry of Forestry. And Surfrider Pacific Rim opposes all future applications from businesses aiming to build private dining spaces on the beach. We urge council to consider a bylaw that would prevent businesses from applying this type of beach use in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. We have Kathy Thick.
Kathy Thick, 351 Tonko Park Road, Tofino, and good afternoon, Mayor and Council. And nice to see you. Congratulations, those of you who are sitting in the seats. I'd like to speak to item 10.3 on the agenda today. Our pickleball club noticed that you will be discussing the water main upgrades that will take place on Mill Street in 2023. On page 64 of the agenda, there are proposed upgrades to the pickleball and tennis courts taking place at the same time. We'd like you to know that we're really excited about this. Our club began in 2012 with a donated net, paddle, and balls, and 4 people who wanted to learn to play. We now have over 20 active members and 5 or more people dropping in per day in the summer when we play outside and use all 3 courts. Currently, there's only 1 court in the community hall with approximately 15 people playing 3 times a week. On Tuesday nights, we play at the school with an emphasis on beginner and younger players. And lately, there's been 12 to 14 people coming out, and members are volunteering to teach others. We have organized several clinics with outside instructors and hosted a pickleball tournament with Yakult last year with the help of the CBT and generous community sponsors. We presented a letter to council in September 2022 with our ideas for the future. All this to say, as a stakeholder, we would love to be engaged. We hope the current plan is somewhat tentative, as we have several suggestions we feel would lead to improved user group experiences. So to this end, we would like to ask staff to meet with our pickleball club executive to collaborate with future court plans. Number 2, we'd like to help fundraise for court upgrades, including the possibility of seasonal bubble coverage. We are a new nonprofit society and we can now apply for grants. Happy to be involved in future planning and fundraising, and we look forward to this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all for public comment. Excellent. Mayor's reports. Well, boy. I got to meet the new executive director of Tourism Tofino, Brad Purcell, and it was quite an encouraging meeting. And I encourage everybody to reach out to Brad. He's an excellent guy to talk to. It's a wonderful chance to have coffee and find out who he is. Also had a recent discussion with Chief Hashiakamus, Hereditary Chief of Ahousaht, and I do want to congratulate both the elected and hereditary leadership of Ahousaht for their tremendous efforts, and all the best to them. Hopefully we'll be able to meet as a council very soon. At a recent meeting with Island Health. Island Health is currently trying to establish a sobering and assessment center in Tofino, and that they're currently looking for a place that can house a sobering assessment center. And so we look forward to continuing to meet and find solutions to that difficult problem. That's really it for me for Mayor's report. It's wonderful to see everybody here. This is everybody's so much better in 3D, to be honest. But it's great to see you all here. It's wonderful to have people stand up at the podium and we get to see your face and hear your voice in real time. We have delegation. We have Christina Owen from Baylink Networks regarding Connect Coast. And I believe we have a Christina on Zoom. Christina, are you there?
Hi, everybody. Yes, I am here. I'm also, my name is Christina. I am the Permitting and Engagement Coordinator for Baylink, who is the prime contractor for installing the connected coast. I'm also joined here with Cheryl Katnick.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Christina. We have a presentation to prepare to show you all, but first I'd like to thank you for letting us participate. And I am joining you today from the shared and unceded ancestral lands of the Coquitlam First Nation, as well as other Coast Salish peoples. So thank you for letting us join. Should I share my screen so that we can jump into the PowerPoint?
Please do. I'm going to hand you over to our corporate manager of corporate services for advice on screen sharing.
I'm hoping I'm not always batting 1,000 on trying to do this. So let me know if that is that up there now?
It is.
Okay, great. Perfect. So as Christina mentioned, we're with the Connected Coast Project. We have a very short agenda today. I understand we have a small amount of time, so we'll try to be as efficient as possible. We'll give you a quick informational update, talk about some of the other permits and approvals, and our next steps for this region. Just in case you've not heard about the Connected Coast Project, it's a federally and provincially funded program through ISED, Indigenous Services Canada, and funded through the provincial government through the Northern Development Initiative and Trust. So the funding was provided to provide marine cable reliable backbone link for the west coast of British Columbia to remote and Indigenous coastal communities. So we have approximately 3,400 kilometers of cable that will be installed by the time the project is completed. And it is to provide access to high-speed internet for communities that otherwise are very hard and difficult to reach, to provide the typical land-based telecommunications. The cable right now is being partially installed. We've got the northern part of the program that's been installed, and now we're working in the southern area, kind of between Port Hardy and Vancouver. We're in permitting for the entire, the rest of the work around Vancouver Island, including the area around Tofino and the far west coast. We have another number of approvals that we need to go through that are both federal, so such as Transport Canada, DFO. We've got a number of provincial parks. We've got the Pacific Rim Park as well. We also have sites where we need, for example, Heritage Conservation Act permits. So it's a lot of permits from the federal level to the local levels to be able to achieve all of our landings. There's 70 First Nations that we're engaging or directly landing a connected coast cable with. We've received many, many letters of support. This is a great program that really benefits as a whole any coastal community that has been deemed as eligible for connection. We have to engage with all the local communities. We engage with tenure holders, marine users, fishers, as many people as we can kind of get out in front of and talk to so that we can achieve the goal of not impacting or as minimal of an impact as we can. The cable involves installation of small marine cable, and you can see it in one of the on reels on the boat down here on the bottom row, second from the left. And it also involves at certain sites, now this wouldn't necessarily be the case for coming ashore in Tofino, but in certain sites, there's a cabinet and a pole, and this allows for the distribution of the telecommunications work. And you can see our smiling team of marine cable folks. We install it using a number of different vessels. So in the top right picture, you'll see this is a vessel from the Tla-o-qui-aht First Nation up in Hartley Bay. And we've partnered with them using their seine boats, which is not traditional for cable install, but it's been working really well. So that's an example of one of our First Nations partnerships. The bottom right corner is a picture of the cable. It's actually very small. It's kind of smaller than a pen, about the size of a pen. When it's out in the deeper water, this is all that will be there is the cable. And as we come ashore, we do protect it using steel split pipe to protect it from rocks, from damage, from really any kind of man-made impact that in the lower water that we can predict. As I mentioned earlier, we've got quite a bit of cable installed coming down from Prince Rupert towards the North Island. As we go, we add the cable to the CHS charts. We've got access to our as-laid routes on our website. So anybody that wants to see where we've placed the cable, they can download it and load it to the navigation software within their own boats. So this is really handy. We've got a lot of fishers that have taken advantage of that. The website also has some important information under operations. So if somebody thinks they've interacted with the cable, we have a phone number that's accessible 24/7. This is an example of some of our previous installations where you can see these are northern landings. So this is what's called steel split pipe. And there's also typical utility conduit that we use to install telecommunications in a street. It can be surface placed or it can be buried. And in the instances where it's surface placed, for example, at some of the Coast Guard stations that we've been going to, there's nowhere to bury it, it's straight rock. We anchor it using bolts to the existing bedrock to anchor it in place, hold it in place so it's not going to be flopping around and damaging anything. This is a underground vault that's very small footprint that gets placed there where we connect our marine cable to the telecommunications cable. And then depending on the equipment and infrastructure, there's a cabinet. At some of our more remote locations, we do have a backup propane generator, but that's typically where we may not have reliable power. Now to the stuff that you're all very interested in, I'm sure. So we have in the area completed a number of site visits. We had folks from Baylink that came out and met with engineering teams, have been back and forth with lots of people within the engineering department, trying to find a suitable location within Tofino that maybe we can bring the connected coast cable to shore. The goal for us is always to land where we're not impacting personal property. So we try to avoid private lands if at all possible. We try to find a Ministry of Transportation infrastructure right of way. We look at our marine tenures to see who might be out there. We look at marine activity. So Baylink, so a part of Christina's team, have been working with Tofino and the province on trying to see, is there a suitable landing location that we can come to terms with that Tofino would be willing to accept. So where we are at in our current status with this particular section of cable is we're submitting to the province for our license of occupation. So this is a small, narrow swath of seabed that provides us non-exclusive rights to the seabed. And the province tenures up to high water, and it's up to the other upland owners to come to agreement with the program on potential landing sites. So this particular map is an example of what has been discussed. So this is between Baylink and within the Tofino Engineering Group. And so what we are trying to do is kind of come to terms on, is this going to be acceptable? Is this something that we can work with the city on? And so that we can continue on with our provincial permitting process. So in order to not, even though we've been working on this exclusively, like we didn't just come kind of last week and say, hey, we're ready for you. But to be able to continue the conversation and to continue with our permitting, we are able to permit a line that would kind of bypass Tofino on paper so that we can continue to have the conversation with you on a landing site that's achievable. And then we could just go back and amend our permit in a slightly later time to adjust. So Christina, maybe you can just very quickly in a minute or two, just give a highlight for kind of the discussions that we've had so far.
Yeah, so initially based on environmental sensitivities and landing viability, we were looking at the location on Campbell Street. Although after many discussions with engineering, our understanding is that that area is going to be turned into a viewpoint and the whole, there's a big development going in there. So we were advised that it wouldn't be the best place to put our infrastructure. So we are now currently looking at a location 1 block over on Neil Street to have our infrastructure on. I think on the next slide, we have an example of a markup of where we propose it to go. So we are looking to put the pole mounted cabinet just as shown, and the red line there is where the conduit would be trenched to connect to the pole mounted cabinet.
There we go. We can go. Oh, well, there you go. I guess I'll just go here. I can't go back on my slides.
Yeah, just a note, I'm just making you aware of a 1 minute time.
I'm sure. So, well, that's all I needed to present today. If there's any questions, that's what we're here for. The main gist of what we wanted to say was we'd like to continue to work with engineering, but we have a plan so that we can achieve our tenure, because obviously, you know, being on the West Coast, we have a very narrow time frame for installation this summer. So we have to get our provincial permits in place so that when the weather window's there and available, we're able to get the vessel out and install. So we just thought we'd present kind of what we're currently talking to engineering about and see if there's any questions.
Super, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. I can turn it over to council. Questions from council? Yes, just here.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for the presentation, appreciate it. And I was just curious in terms of those site location areas. There are a number of federal government sites on here, specifically Coast Guard has a facility here. I'm just curious in terms of the location selection from your engineering department, if multiple locations were looked at and which one was decided upon as most feasible. Obviously, you've located that, and I'm sure there's been a lot of work going in. I'm just curious because there are other sites on the peninsula that would probably be a little easier, I would suspect, in terms of permissions to proceed.
Christina?
So, oh, sorry. So we did do a couple different surveys around Tofino. We were back and forth actually. So we do have to consider a couple different things. We have to look at Transport Canada. We want to avoid anywhere that's heavily trafficked. We also are trying to avoid any environmentally sensitive areas. And in terms of the network, we have a certain amount of cable we need to connect before it's too long for the connection to be feasible.
So with regards to sites around Tofino, yes, I know the field team has been to a number of sites and has been back and forth with engineering quite a few times. What I could propose is we can make sure that site discussion is shared with council.
Thank you. And just a follow-up.
Follow-up, and then we'll go to Councilor McMaster.
Yeah, and just quickly, I was wondering, is Leonard Island, the lighthouse station out just off Tofino, is it going to be connected to the service, just out of curiosity?
No, it won't be. So our connections to the Coast Guard have been, they're being funded by Coast Guard, and that's not one of the sites that they have elected to fund.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor McMaster.
Yeah, that was a great presentation. You mentioned needing reliable power before you put in a propane generator. Can you define reliable? Do you mean fluctuations or power cuts? Because we do have a fair few power cuts in the winter.
Yeah, I'm not, Christina, this isn't a site that necessarily needs to have any power or backup propane tank, is it? Was that not what was planned?
No, this one doesn't have a backup propane tank. So because we don't need it here is because the surrounding sites have reliable power. So if we run out of power, we're still able to backfeed here.
So we're kind of banking on that our various sites nearby that have the right equipment, that if something happens, we're still able to backfeed. And that's kind of a bit of a idea of how the network is reliable and redundant. And that if anything cuts out either at a site or nearby a site, we're able to kind of switch around. But I don't believe we have a propane tank proposed here. Because at this point, I should note as well, I believe this is just strictly a vault and a cabinet that's ready for use. Currently, there is no connection. It would need an ISP such as City West, TELUS, Rogers, or Shaw to apply to connect into that box. And then at that point, it might be determined that maybe there could be some backup power needed.
Okay. Hope for the best.
Councillor Sloman.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, just for clarity, now that's a rocky area that you're proposing to put this through. So that pipe would be visible through over the rock, or would you be planning on blasting to get it down, or?
No. So yes, we recognize that it would be visible. We would use the smallest split pipe as possible. We would anchor it using drilled anchors. And where we can, we try to kind of adjust and move. If there's boulders that can be moved, small, obviously, but no, there would be no mechanical blasting or excavation. If in a site that we can use some mechanical means to bury, we do. But in instances like this, which are rocky West Coast sites, which we have quite a number of, we just have the black split pipe that is anchored to the rock. So yes, it will be visible.
And then I have another question, if I may.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So now boats often anchor in that bay in the summertime. How would that affect pipe?
Well, we will have the split pipe only goes down to about up to 4 meters of water depth. So we need to be able to install that to a certain depth. We would have it marked on CHS charts, and we do pass this through Transport Canada to make sure that we're not in a formal anchorage area, but we would need cables to not anchor on or right immediately at the cable.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Further questions from council? Seeing none, perhaps a question for staff. What just for clarification, what is staff and council's role in this process going forward?
Okay, go ahead.
To the chair, our role is basically to permit this to land in Tofino. And so what if this is the preferred site, which is Neil Street, which is more preferred than Campbell Street was, we would go through a process of working on an encroachment agreement that would come back to council and identify that area by survey, determine how much the value of that is worth on an annual basis, and we'll come to council for approval. And then once we have that approval, we move forward with these guys kind of close to move forward with installation. This is very similar to the process we just followed through the N-Corp container situation up in Industrial Way, just a smaller piece of equipment. And again, Neil Street is much more preferable than to Campbell Street because of the improvements that we'll be making there over the coming years.
Okay, thank you. I don't have a motion in front of me, so not sure if we need anything at this point. Just for information. Okay, thank you very much.
Great. Well, thank you for having us, and I look forward to continuing to work with your team.
Super.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to correspondence. We have correspondence from the Honorable MP Gord Johns, and that was a congratulations to the new council. It's just wonderful to have Gord in Ottawa, going to bat for us. Correspondence from Honorable MLA Josie Osborne regarding announcement of rental protection fund grant. And also wonderful to have Josie there at the province, working hard. Any comments from council? Seeing none, moving on. We have 9.3, we have correspondence from residents regarding disposition of Crown land application, and this is the Wickeninish Inns Crown land tenure application. Of course, we've had quite a few letters and they continue to come in, and of course we have a presentation from Ms. Adair. This is an interesting correspondence, and normally I just open up the correspondence to council, and then we kind of go around and share, all our opinions. But this time I think it may be because it's so unique, and there's sort of multiple levels to this, that perhaps I'd like to break it up. If that's all right with council. Yes, Councillor Anderson.
I may at some point, depending on where the discussion goes, have to declare a conflict of interest
Okay, just let me know.
I'll let you know if discussion moves towards, I don't know if, I don't think at this point we're being asked to approve or endorse the application or not. But my business does do business with the Wiccan-Inishin. So if we're considering the Wiccan-Inishin's application, I'll have to decide at that time to.
Okay, well, certainly
whether or not I'm in conflict.
Let's tell you what, first, let's get into some of the preambles, and then at some point, I'm sure that we will talk about the specific application and council's action regarding that, or see what council has to say. But I think the first thing that I would like to deal with is that this is a unique, we're the first application for a tenure of Crown land for a beach. In Tofino, it's a commercial occupation of Chesterman and Shell Beach. And staff don't have a policy on how to deal with this application. So I think the first thing that I would like to do is give staff some direction on how to deal with these types of applications.
On a general question?
This is a general
question. I don't
question.
believe I'm in conflict.
Okay, so is council all good with this thread so far? And so basically what I'm asking council at this point is does council wish to be referred, to have referrals regarding Crown land tenures such as this one on Chesterman Shell Beach come to council for input, which is of course our our right to put input in that. And so I'm just looking around for council. Yes or no? Is this something that we want to have input in? Is there anybody that does not? Okay.
I'll just maybe I'll provide there's different types of foreshore applications, and I think the beach should be considered very different than, say, the harbor or any beach areas. Public use areas is very different than a property that is just happens to be adjacent to the inlet or to Brownic acid, or there's just a number of places where applications may not be of such concern, and then I'm not really sure how the approving body, which I think is in the office is in Port Alberni in this case. I don't know if they treat applications differently, whether they're on a beach with public access or on another piece of foreshore. So my comment is I think it's of more concern on a beach area. Mm-hmm. So definitely, I think it's in Tofino's interest to see those applications come before council. We might need some staff guidance on what might trigger that in other locations, but I think definitely it's in the public interest and the interest of the future of Tofino and tourism that these applications get to be inputted by council.
Great.
That's my comment.
That's your comment. That's good. Any further comments? Because I do have a notice of motion here, or sort of a motion to sort of cover this off and to give staff some direction. How about I read it, and then we can I can read out the motion. We can have a seconder, and then we can discuss it, and then we can move on. So here it is. I move that staff bring forward a policy discussion to a future committee of the whole meeting regarding responding to referrals to applications for Crown land tenures And I do hear Councillor Anderson's comments about how beaches are perhaps different than other land tenors. But this will give, this motion will give staff a chance to bring it back to committee of whole and we can have a more full discussion.
Second motion.
Just not done yet. Yeah, just sorry. And that in the absence of a policy, all future referrals regarding Crown land tenors be brought to council for consideration. Now, this is the one maybe where we can, that's my motion. We can, if I have a seconder, then we can perhaps discuss the motion.
Okay, I'll try this time.
The second, okay, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Now we can actually discuss this motion and perhaps we can make an amendment according if Councillor Anderson feels that we should differentiate Crown land tenors and Crown land tenors on the beach.
I trust that staff will bring that back for further discussion.
Okay. Any further comment from council? Call a question? All in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion's carried. Now, the next question, of course, is going to be how does council like to respond to this particular application? So perhaps now would be a good time if you have a conflict of interest to.
Yeah, so I'll recuse myself from the discussion on this due to conflict of interest. My business, the bakery, does business with the Wiccan Inn, and I believe that puts me in a conflict.
Okay. Okay, now we have to get, I think it's a good idea that we're going to get into perhaps council's direction regarding this specific application. I'd be willing to start out since it's kind of an unusual situation. I did, because we do not have a policy regarding the beach per se, besides my own opinion, I did look at the vision to action document that we do look to, the OCP, which is informed by the vision to action plan. I also looked to our tourism master plan. I also looked, of course, to Tourism Tofino, their vision statement, guiding principles, and also the Chamber of Commerce, and on to various other local organizations. And it seems to me that there is a very strong thread that runs through all of these plans and mission statements and visions, and that is to conserve, protect, regenerate, preserve, restore the natural environment to its natural state. And of course, I also think that in this particular case, we're talking about beaches, which are, in my mind, one of our premier public assets. And we are called as council, and of course, all of our organizations to steward those beaches. Taking that all into account and realizing that this is it is an application to occupy for commercial purposes 2 of those beaches, and all that entails, and that in my mind this would also possibly set a precedent, and for all the other reasons as well. I personally would oppose this application and direct staff to prepare a letter for the province in opposition. That'd be my stance. And now I'm going to turn it over to council.
Sure. Steer, and through the chair. Thank you, Mayor Law. That I think succinctly sums up my feelings. The only thing that I would add to that, on top of all from the OCP on down, there was obviously significant public input into this, and the vast majority, if not all of the input, was not in support of this type of activity on our public beaches. So with all of those in mind, I once again would have to concur with Mayor Law in terms of my opposition, and would direct staff to forward correspondence in that regard if the rest of council was open to that suggestion.
Other comments from councillors? Councillor Sloman.
Yes, I agree with both yourself and Councillor Steer. I just also wanted to add that in this application, they mentioned that it didn't affect the environment, and I don't think that they took into consideration how permanent tents, well, not permanent, but temporarily permanent, would affect migrating shorebirds. And 50 people continually compacting the sand, I think that would affect like sand fleas and all sorts of different microorganisms. And I feel like that their approach was misleading in their application.
Thank you, councillor. All right, councillor Thomas.
Oh, I was gonna let Councillor Sawyer go first.
Councillor Sawyer then.
Yeah, I would follow up on Councillor Sloman's comments of impact, just being that permanent structures would affect the movement of driftwood along the shoreline, as well as, you know, human activity continually in the same area as a heavy presence would do the same. I think that seeing the public input as well as a lack of support in our OCP does make it seem like this is something we should follow up with, and I would support writing a letter as well.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas.
I have the unique position of having worked for the Wicked Nation, as well as been in charge of the crab cookout, the event in North Chesterman that they're applying to continue to do in the summer of 2015. So just from the viewpoint of the actual operations, I would say that it's not very wildlife safe. I know that food is kept in an unsecured, unrefrigerated hut that is untended during the event. Food is served on a buffet on a table. It has not in the past been regulated by VHA because it has not been a proper event. It's been operated under the understanding that it's not really there. So there's a lot of hesitations with that, of saying, oh, now you get to do something for real when you've been doing things very wrongly in the past. Alcohol has not been served on North Chesterman, but Shell Beach is a huge component of that. So there has been decades of open alcohol on public beaches, which the WIC doesn't acknowledge as public. I have sat within meetings within the organization, and the attitude towards this is very much a sense of entitlement. There has been a sense of knowing that it was wrong for a number of years and just thinking that they were going to get away with it because of, we don't serve alcohol, so it's okay. I have been in the position of asking locals as well as guests of the hotel to move from the seats and tables if they are not paying guests of the event. It has not been a public asset because members of the public have not been able to join. The only way to go to this event is if you are staying at the hotel. The sense that this isn't adding much to their business is very misleading. It's $65 a head, 50 covers, 3 nights a week for the summer. There's a potential earning of $100,000. So we're talking millions of dollars over the years just from the North Chesterman site. I could not in good conscience support this in any way going forward.
Thank you. Okay. I do, sorry, Councillor McMaster.
Yeah, I agree with what everybody else has said. I've been around the world and there's nothing more upsetting when you're going down a beach and then it's suddenly restricted area for a certain hotel. And I think the jewel in the crown for this area is the beaches, and they are public, and public means access for everybody. So I will support what everybody says, and we should be writing a letter to the government.
Okay. Thank you. I do have one more comment, and it is about perhaps highest and best use. I just want to put this in here, is that we do often look at land as highest and best use, and having a resort on a beach like this, of course, from a planning perspective is considered highest and best use. But our beaches, from a business perspective, not only from a resident perspective, business resident perspective, visitor perspective, we are known for our pristine beaches, and having them empty and having them open, in this case, free of commercial entities, big white tents set up for 6 months of the year. I think that that empty and pristine and restored is highest and best use for all of us on multiple levels. And I just want to bring that back, that generally for our communities, visitors or business community, I would say that objecting is the right order. And I hear that all from council. I think that's a unanimous. I do have a motion in front of me prepared, depending on what council was, which way council would like to go. I can read it out just to get quickly council's feedback. And here it is: that staff be authorized to respond to the referral request from the provincial government regarding Wickinninish and limited application for Crown land tenure, and that the following comments from council be included in the response. Now, in this case, we can insert comments, or in this case, that council opposes the application. Now, the question is, maybe this is something I haven't looked as far ahead of, is that good enough for council for this, just to oppose it, or would council like to make specific notes of opposition? And then I do have the other option, is that we can also authorize mayor to prepare, myself to prepare a letter on behalf of council articulating the District of Tofino's position. So we can have two motions if that works for council. So I'm just looking around for thumbs up or nods.
Yeah, I would support the letter in opposition, and I'll look to the rest of council to see if it would be necessary to include a secondary and added administrative detail to send those comments. If there was in the application process, in the submissions, if there was a need, potentially, I think council could follow up with those comments through the mayor.
Okay, well, then I'll make the motion. I move that staff be authorized to respond to the referral request from the provincial government regarding Wickinninish and Limited's application for Crown land tenure, and that the following comments from council be included in the response. Council opposes the application for Crown land tenure, and we can add, of course, all the details in there. Is that sufficient from a staffing perspective? Okay. Can I have a seconder? Second by Councillor Thomas. Do we have any comments on this motion from council? Seeing none, calling the question. All in favor? And that is none opposed, motion's carried. So the next question is, here's another possible, that I could move that the mayor be authorized to prepare a letter on behalf of council articulating the District of Tofino's position on the Wickinninish and Limited's application for Crown land tenure to be submitted with the district's referral response. And I may also say that we may prefer to also CC perhaps the minister or our MLA or both. It's up to council. So I'm just going to throw that out to council right now for a little quick discussion, whether or not I can make the motion. Or... Yes, Councillor.
I would be satisfied with CC and the relevant people so that all of the layers of government above us know that we're doing this.
Okay. Further comments from council?
I would support that as well, definitely including our MLA.
Okay, any other comments from councillors? Okay, well then I'll read the motion. I move that the mayor be authorized to prepare a letter on behalf of council articulating the District of Tofino's position on the Wickenish Inn's Limited's application for Crown land tenure to be submitted with the district's referral response to be CC'd to the Minister of Forests and our MLA Josie Osborne.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Thomas. Any further comment from council? Seeing none, I call the question. All in favor? None opposed, motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, we have 9.4 correspondence from Christine Lowther regarding significant tree bylaw. Perhaps this one, we did have a public comment from Ms. Floody. Perhaps this one, if council has questions, we can direct them to Mr. Rock. Oh, yes. Okay, we're on to, yes, maybe just, I'm going to do it again. Okay. Yeah. So we're on the significant tree bylaw, item 9.4. It's a correspondence, a letter from Chris Lowther. I kind of thought if council doesn't have any specific questions, I thought maybe it might be a good idea just to ask staff to just do a little overview of where we're at with our significant tree bylaw, how the significant tree bylaw works now and could work in the future, just very briefly for ourselves and both our letter writer and our member public.
Through the chair to council. We have a significant tree bylaw that historically had one tree on it. It was the Eight Street tree, which is the one that we have chained up. That one was the purpose of the significant tree bylaw. Over the years, we also use that now in the development applications. And so through the development process, we have environmental consultants come in and review sites and projects, and in some cases determine that trees are significant. The most recent, or the only other one we've done so far, is at 200 Campbell Street at the end, where we identified by survey 4 or 5 trees, and put those into the bylaw. At the same time, we increased the fines for removing trees, those specific trees at that time as well. And so that's kind of what that bylaw is. It was never intended to be a overall district tree bylaw. That's a project that planning is currently working on, and how we identify trees there or trees to be protected or managed will be a different process. So it would likely be based on species, type of trees, size of trees, circumference, where they're located in the community, and that'll be part of a larger process that I understand will be going back to council in the near future. To have that discussion. So the significant tree bylaw is basically something we had previously and met our needs, and now we're moving past that to something a little bit more comprehensive.
Super. So I just want to be clear, we can't pick a tree in the, that we particularly like and say stick that on the significant tree bylaw.
We could, but we'd have to do through a development process. So it's not like we're going to go on to private property and pick someone's tree and say we're protecting that tree. But if someone was to come with an application for rezoning, for example, we would review that on a number of different levels, including an environmental level and through our development permit processes. And if there's any trees identified on that lot that were significant at the time, we would have a conversation with the applicant. It would come back to council and go through the readings, and it may end up being a condition of the rezoning that we protect a certain tree, which is the case at 200 Campbell.
Thank you. Cool. Yes, Councilor Anderson.
Is it possible for a property owner to propose one of the trees on their own property to be designated? To voluntarily bring a tree forward that is under their whatever ownership or jurisdiction or whatever?
Yes, in theory, that could happen.
Okay.
Councilor Sawyer.
Through the chair, just sorry, looking for some understanding. So you mentioned that we added 5 trees to the bylaw at one go. And then moving forward, there's a separate bylaw being developed district-wide. Is there an idea moving forward of adding more trees to this bylaw, or are we going to continue doing, 5 at a time every few years, or is it going to be 1 per year? Or is that just the 5?
It's my understanding that that process may wind down once we have an overall district tree bylaw and tree strategy, that process may wind down. We may never get rid of that bylaw because it's protecting those specific trees. And we could use it as a tool if there was something we identified through rezoning application that we really, really wanted to protect. But it's likely that will sunset. The bylaw probably will never go away because we have the extra on it. But and we may want to protect trees of our own on property. So I would expect that we use it less. But I think that'd be for the planning department to determine through their consultation with council and the community.
Okay, thank you.
And just a quick question, I believe that staff is also working on a much more comprehensive forest/tree strategy that will be presented to council, which will be a little more encompassing in a larger ecosystem context rather than just into significant trees.
Great. Thank you. Moving on to 9.5, we have correspondence from West Coast Multiplex Society. And this is congratulations to new council on a request to support the project. I believe there was an email sent with the existing motion that was recently passed by the previous council. Any questions from council? Okay, seeing none, we'll move right along. Correspondence from Wild Safe BC regarding request for multi-year funding for the local Wild Safe BC program. Questions and comments from council? Councillor Steer.
Yeah, in conversation fully, I was curious. This is Bob Hansen at Wellsite BC had cited a few potential avenues for including this in a long-term budget for a variety of reasons. The District of Tofino has included, as well as the ACRD. I was looking to staff to look for a mechanism for including that into the budget process and how that can come across for this current budget. So that there's a little more security for WellSafe BC in terms of the program delivery and the fact that we recognize clearly within council and within the community how important this program is to the District of Tofino and the community.
Thank you. Through the chair, Councillor Steer. What we did have a look at the request, and what staff are proposing is that for 2023, the $4,000 be funded out of the council grants budget. That would reduce the overall amount to $21,000 to offer as in the call for applications in 2023, and that for amounts for 2024 to 2027 that would be referred to the financial planning process, and that way we can determine a more long-term approach. But to immediately fund that amount for 2023, I would suggest it come out of the council grants budget.
And then discussion further for that longer term commitment to multi-year funding.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments from council? I do have a motion that follows those recommendations. Okay, I want to read the motion that I have. I move that the District of Tofino support the Wild and Safe BC program in the amount of $4,000 in 2023 to be funded from the 2023 council grant budget, and that support for years 2024 to 2027 be referred to the 2023-2027 financial planning process.
I'll second that.
Second by Councillor Steer. Any comments? Seeing none, I have a comment. I hope it makes it into that budget. It'd be nice to see this long-term support. So seeing no other comments, I call the question. All in favor? None opposed, motion is carried. Wow, this is such a long correspondence. That's it though. Hey, we're on to presentations and reports. So Mr. Thick. We have permission to proceed for the Tofino Volunteer Fire Department Training Area. Thank you very much, Mayor Law. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have a very brief presentation related to the report that was part of the council package for the Tofino Volunteer Fire Department Training Ground. Again, as Mayor Law suggested, we're considering permission to proceed with the zoning amendment. Let's wait for a second to load this up. All right, so by way of a little bit of background, this application has come forward following a council resolution from 2021. So it was a little while ago. So just to remind council and for those councillors who were not present at that time, a resolution was passed by council that staff be authorized to initiate a zoning amendment for a particular part of District Lot 117. This is the district-owned lot at the western end, the top of Industrial Way. It's currently the location of the wastewater treatment plant construction project. But there's a small section of that council would like to look at potentially developing a training ground for the Tofino Volunteer Fire Department. Following that, again, it's maybe important to note as well that this isn't going to be a gift to the Tofino Volunteer Fire Department. It'll be a 10-year, so sort of a long-term lease to the Tofino Volunteer Fire Department. So it's not that council is disposing of any land, they're just potentially leasing it. So the location, again, at the west end of Industrial Way, it's a very large district lot. The part under consideration today for rezoning is the small red square that's behind the closed captioning part in the bottom right of the larger blue rectangle, but essentially accessed at the west end of Industrial Way there, just beyond the public works yard. So this rezoning application would allow the Tofino Volunteer Fire Department to have a dedicated sanctioned live training area. Historically, there have been training activities that have happened on this land. However, it has never been formally zoned or formally entered into any sort of a legal agreement to allow that in that location. Really, the goal of the training area is to increase the capacity of the organization and result in better community service. And it's important to note that although the zoning change will allow certain structures, no structures are proposed at this time, and any structures that would be constructed would be permitted only under the specific 10-year agreement between the District of Tofino and the Tofino Volunteer Fire Department. Taking a look at some of the policy that we use to evaluate these applications, it's generally supported by the Vision to Action Plan. It's generally favored by the Official Community Plan. Within the staff report, there's some discussion about certain aspects of the OCP that are not particularly encouraging of it. However, there's nothing in the OCP that prohibits this kind of development. The major part of the OCP that is not supportive is the sort of area that talks about not necessarily developing within these rural areas. However, as the property has largely been developed, it's the history of the use, and it's a very specific type of development, and it will contribute overall to the community resilience and safety. Staff find that there's more support for the particular application as opposed to the discouraging aspects of the OCP. Largely, again, this is kind of based on our idea that the particular lot in question has been cleared and historically used for this purpose, and there's no significant impacts proposed to the environment as noted in the environmental impact assessment. And again, we're looking to increase the resilience of the community. It's a very specific type of development that is largely supported by our guiding documents. Some of the planning considerations that staff identified initially, the use and location, it's a reasonable distance from any residential property and other private properties, non-district owned properties. It's already cleared, there's been a history of the use on the property, and it's not a commonly accessed property by the public. So taking those things into consideration seems like a reasonable location for these types of activities. Again, the activities would not be very common, likely only taking place on a Tuesday night, which is the typical night for fire practice, and certainly not every week. Access will remain as is proposed from the west end of Industrial. There's no changes proposed to the existing access. Should at a later date some sort of structure be built there, the access may be changed, but again, that would be subject to further agreements with the District of Tofino. As there's no structures proposed, there are no significant concerns around servicing. And taking a look at the environment, as noted, there was an environmental impact assessment done. No major concerns were identified. However, there is a small marsh wetland area with some riparian considerations, I believe in the southwest corner of the lot. The recommendation from the biologist was that some additional plantings be located in that area and a certain buffer around certain parts of the property be also considered. While it was not part of the environmental impact assessment, staff are also looking at the consideration of oil separators depending on the type of training that is proposed for the area, particularly in that corner of the wall. At this point, staff are not recommending holding a public hearing. This is a council-initiated application, not out of line with the OCP as noted, and will result in little noticeable change to the area. Should staff choose to not, or should, pardon me, council choose to not hold a public hearing, staff will be sending out notices of the application to all the affected properties in the vicinity, as well as advertising in the Westerly prior to coming forward to council for consideration of first reading. So we would go through all the same notification procedures for a public hearing. However, we would not hold the actual public hearing itself. The recommendation before council today is that staff should be granted permission to proceed with further review of the zoning amendment application for that portion of District Lot 117 identified for the proposed Tofino Volunteer Fire Department training ground, and that no public hearing be held in conjunction with the application. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you very much, Mr. The questions from council? Yes.
Following up with what you just mentioned about the oil separators for the marsh, would that involve as well some form of drainage just from the different types of training that are done that may involve vehicles on fire, although those are usually drained, but I'm just thinking about fire suppressant chemicals and other byproducts of firefighting.
Yeah, certainly. So thank you for the question through the chair. Those are some of the concerns that staff have kind of initially identified. As we don't know the specifics, often we get down to the more kind of engineering servicing side of things following first reading of the bylaw. I don't have a specific answer for you, but that's the goal of any oil separator or other kind of considerations for using this as an actual training ground is to ensure that any of the materials or activities that take place on the property don't impact the surrounding areas, particularly the noted marsh area to the southwest there, or southeast.
Super. That's great.
Thanks.
Any other questions from council? Seeing none, would somebody like to read?
Sure, I can make the motion on this one. That staff be granted permission to proceed with further review of the zoning amendment application to the portion of District 117 identified for the proposed Tofino Volunteer Fire Department training ground, and that no public hearing be held in conjunction with the application.
I'll second.
Second by Councillor Thomas. Any other further questions from council, comments?
I do have a comment through the mayor. Yeah, I just comment that the value of this training center cannot be overemphasized, as we know recently with some of the fire events that we've had in our community, and also the ability for other departments potentially for training exercises to utilize this as well. So I see this as a very positive thing. And the other is that I'd just like to note that this is generated through a volunteer society that has donated a number of wonderful contributions to our community, and specifically the volunteer fire department, but in many other areas. So I'm very highly supportive of this, and I'm looking forward to seeing it come to fruition.
It's a good comment. It's good. It's great. Yeah, we love the fire department. Okay. Seeing no other comments, call the question. All in favor? None opposed, motion's carried. Thank you. We have council room renovation, a request for early budget approval. We do not have a presentation. I believe we've all been fairly well versed in this. Yeah. Cost escalations have gone up, but that was due to a significant findings. So any comment from council? Any questions for staff?
I'll miss this room.
It'll still be here. It'll just be different. It'll be different. That's all right. We'll all meet in the theater, and that'll be great. We can dress up.
Okay. I'll make the recommendation on that municipal hall renovation project budget in the amount of $434,000 be funded as outlined in the January 24, 2023 staff report titled Council Room Renovation Request for Early Budget Approval. receive early budget approval prior to adoption of the 2023 to 2027 financial plan.
Seconded by Councillor Thomas. Any comment from council? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, motion is carried. Okay, we have 10.3 Neil Street water main replacement and village green improvements. Mr. Rogers. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Pretty excited about this, by the way. It's exciting.
This evening, I'll be presenting the Neil Street water main replacement and village green improvements for early budget approval. This is a project that is being overseen by myself and my colleague, April Vermont. The project is a combination of two projects that currently exist or existed in the 2022 financial plan, that being the improvement of the village green in terms of the sports courts, and then the replacement and upgrading of water main along Neil Street. We've completed engineering designs for both projects in 2022. And we would like to do this for a couple of different reasons. Combining the projects, they're both located in the same area, and we think we can find some cost savings as if we put them together and put them out for procurement that way. We have a Corps report from 2012, which is a water report that calls for the replacement of asbestos concrete water mains throughout the district. There's asbestos concrete water main along Neil Street, and so this is one of those sections that we would like to replace. We replaced the section to the east of that a number of years ago. In replacing it, we're going to go from a 150 millimeter size to a 200 millimeter size, so we're going to get more pressures and flows through this improvement as well. In terms of the sports court, we've undertaken an assessment of the courts. The basketball courts are in okay condition. The tennis courts were cracking, and there's some significant subsurface issues, and that's led to increase in the cost related to that portion of the project. I think we're all familiar with it, but just for those of us who are not, the area in green is the location. It goes the length of Neil Street between 3rd and 2nd Street, and then in through the middle of the village green. This is what the project looks like now on paper in 2D. You can see there's a sidewalk that will connect 3rd Street to 2nd Street, and a place for pedestrians and cyclists to move through. There'll be new formalized parking that will in the end most likely end up in our parking program if we move forward with that. There'll be the improvements to the basketball court and the pickleball and tennis courts. Through the middle, because of the grade change, we're going to have an opportunity for the facility to be accessible and accessible from both sides. Also to the north, we see a maintenance entrance to allow us to maintain this in a much more efficient way than we currently do, using the stairs and the very narrow openings. As I mentioned earlier, we have a grade difference there, and that will allow us to create an accessible ramp and pathways. And again, the maintenance area there to the north or the top of your screen. The project is proposed to be funded through a number of C&I levy pots of funds, through the Resort Municipality Initiative and through the pay parking reserves for that were received through the 2021 program, for a total cost of $1.709650 million. Benefits, we're going to be improving the safety experience of the users of our sports courts. We're going to improve public safety in the downtown core. We're going to reduce the risk of infrastructure failure for things like aging water main, reduce maintenance expenses. Will reduce risk to the public, to the district due to injuries for public using our facilities. We're going to provide more accessibility in the downtown core, as well as a pedestrian network. And the improved parking should make the street a lot safer than it is currently, where we have cars and pedestrians crossing paths quite often, and it can be a bit of a dangerous area. So the recommendation that the Neil Street Village Green Improvement Project budget in the amount of $1,709,650 be funded as described in the January 24th, 2023 staff report titled Neil Street Water Main Replacement and Village Green Improvements, and receive early budget approval prior to the adoption of the 2023-2027 financial plan.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions from Mr. Rogers from council? Yes, Councillor Anderson.
and this might be too detailed, but I'm just wondering, when we remove asphalt, do we have a way of recycling it?
That is a question that I cannot answer. I'm going to give you a half answer, Councillor Anderson, through the chair. I understand was the contractors come through and they remove that, they take that away, and oftentimes it's recycled into other asphalt. But I'm not familiar with what's happening on the contractor side, but I understand that's what happens. And perhaps my colleague April Vermont is here by Zoom. She can answer.
All right. It's my hope that we do.
Yeah.
Councillor McMaster, Councillor Sloman, and then Councillor Sawyer.
Yeah, I don't object to the project as a whole, but the layout of the courts as portrayed, it doesn't satisfy either the pickleball players or the tennis players. When this was first presented to council before Christmas, I asked staff if they'd met with the pickleball group, because the design didn't look great to me. And I was told, yes, they talked to Dan Odette, and he has no recollection of that. So although I don't object to the project as a whole, I would encourage staff to work with the pickleball group, because I think there's a more optimum design for the layout of the courts that would satisfy both the pickleball group and the tennis players, because at the moment you're just creating conflict. So I don't know whether I need a motion to encourage staff to work with the pickleball group.
Perhaps I can just jump in here and ask staff if there is if there's room to move on the design now. Is that something that what would be the best way to answer Councillor McMaster's query?
Sure thing. So through the chair to Councillor McMaster, we have been in contact with the pickleball group as late as July of last year. This is a replacement of an existing facility. We're not looking to expand or change it, and so that what we have in terms of the location and the size and what it is can't really change. But we expect to work closely with pickleball groups and the tennis groups and any other court users through the detailed design. So we're at 80% design on the tennis courts, and we expect that we will work with our stakeholders to try to find a solution that works for all. So what you see there is a schematic with an engineering drawing. What that court actually looks like in the end is yet to be determined.
That satisfy you, Councillor McMaster?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're just looking at changing the location of the lines and things like that. It's nothing major, so.
Perfect. Excellent. Councillor Sloman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Rogers. I was just looking at those large mature trees along the Neil Street, and I read in that you're going to attempt to retain them, but then it said, I believe it was in note 1, it says where possible. So I'm just wondering at what how far will we go to preserve those root structures, and do we envision this being a problem?
Through the chair to Councillor Sloman, thanks for the question. It's definitely something that's on our radar, and it's something that we have had to deal with many of our projects in the downtown core is weighing out the removal of trees and the installation of district infrastructure. It's always been our practice to try to save trees as we can. So into that end, we work with arborists and have them do studies to determine what can we move our infrastructure as we get into detailed design, or is it just something that's going to cause an issue for safety or other issues down the road. So I can say that we will look at it. I can't promise you that we won't be removing a tree or two or all of them, but we're not quite there at that process yet. If we want to put a sidewalk there, we're going to have to deal with tree roots. If we want to put parking there, we're going to have to deal with tree roots. Again, it's our intent not to remove trees, but if we have to, for the success of the project, we sometimes do.
Thank you. Councillor Sawyer.
My question through the chair was partially involved with Councillor Sloman's, and I'm sorry if it was in the report and I just couldn't find it. I was wondering if the water main currently runs under what is the gravelled parallel parking area that would be getting replaced.
Through the chair, Councillor Sawyer, sorry, you Councillor Sawyer. It does. It runs under the gravel section of the road of the road now on the north side of the road. On the north side of the road, which actually makes our project a little bit easier because we don't have to deal with as much asphalt removal or replacement. It makes it a little bit more affordable as well.
I was curious about then if that was the location, if those trees were going to be involved. I was trying to guess from the green on the schematic, and yeah, I can see that now.
In our past experience, when we get into detailed design and actually into construction is when we start having to deal with this stuff. So we try to make our designs avoid it where we can. And then as we actually get into the digging is when we sort of start making decisions on the fly about trying to maybe modify certain things, go around a tree or figure out what that trade-off is.
All right, thank you.
Excellent. I have a quick question. It has to do with electric chargers. Since we're doing all this work, is there going to be a possibility for when we do new parking schemes, infrastructure to have at some point electric charging stations? Is that something that is on the radar or?
To the chair. It is something that can be considered. In this case, we haven't. We did look into putting a PowerPoint in the parking location to support a pay parking kiosk, which I don't think we're going to have to do. It added significant costs to the project in like number of hundred thousands of dollars just for that kiosk. So for this project, we haven't considered it, but it's something that council is interested in. I think April, Ms. Vermont and I can put our heads together and start looking at that as options as we bring projects forward to council.
Okay, perhaps we can refer that to strategic planning. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was through the chair. I was just going to follow up on that and say, just to say maybe that's something we keep in mind going forward if we do run, because I know we're talking about adding paid parking in a number of spaces, that we're going through this in another situation with running lines and it being really expensive. But if we can partner things up like this project's partnered up, which I really like. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Thomas. And something that we haven't been pursuing lately, but we can get back on is pursuing grants. So quite a few grants out there for electrical vehicle charging. And I think we have the resources now in both our project management teams to start working towards those grants and making sure they're lining up with the projects that we're proposing.
Excellent. Okay, seeing no further comments from council. Would somebody like to read the recommendation?
Councillor McMaster.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see your hand up there. You just stuck it out.
Aaron, you're talking about paid parking. Is there any thought to put in some bicycle racks along there? Because you've got 20 people using the courts on a weekend sort of thing. So is there any thought to creating an area for bicycles?
Through the chair to Councillor McMaster, yes, we'll be considering that through the detailed design areas for pedestrians and cyclists.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, somebody like to read the recommendation?
I can make the recommendation that the Neil Street and Village Green Improvement Project budgeted in the amount of $1,709,650 be funded as described in the January 24th, 2023 staff report titled Neil Street Water Main Replacement and Village Green Improvements, and receive early budget approval prior to adoption of the 2023-2027 financial plan.
Second by Councillor Thomas. Any further comments from council?
I do have just a comment. I just wanted to express my gratitude to staff on this one. And this is an example of a very supportive and collaborative work between two departments that has created what I think is a project that is going to serve great benefits. I also wanted to comment once again on the creative use of the funding, the RMI, the CNI levels, and specifically the parking revenues, which are the intended uses for, and the ability to utilize that revenue for these types of projects. I want to commend staff on doing that as well. So that was just a quick shout out to staff on this particular one. And then I was going to follow up with Councillor McMaster's. It wasn't a question, but I think staff has heard the comments from Councillor McMaster and from the public here today regarding the configuration of those pickleball courts. So thank you very much.
All right, excellent. I'll call the question. All in favor? None opposed, motion's carried. Now it is 6 o'clock. Do we want to take a quick 5-minute recess? Can we do 5 minutes, or what would people like? I'm looking, 5 minutes is fine. Is that good enough? Let's do 5 minutes. Let's reconvene at 5 after 6.
January 12th, 2021 regular council meeting. And so the two special event applications that are coming forward to you in agenda item 10.4 and 10.5 are the first reports that you will see under this municipal alcohol policy since this was adopted. So the purpose of the municipal alcohol policy is to reduce potential harms at public events serving alcohol and also to promote inclusivity at events occurring on public property. The municipal alcohol policy applies to public events occurring on municipal public property and is part of the requirements of the process for special events to gain a permit, a special event permit through the BC Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch. So the municipal alcohol policy does provide guidance on the authority to approve applications. So this includes providing approval from the District of Tofino for special event organizers to apply to the BC Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch. And it gives council the authority to approve the use of municipally owned property for public events serving alcohol. The municipal alcohol policy defines where the service of alcohol is prohibited on district property. So these areas can include parks or First Street Dog or trail networks. And it identifies community events specifically where the service of alcohol is prohibited. So this has certain events such as Canada Day or parades or where there's a large inclusion of families present is where that is defined. And then lastly, the municipal alcohol policy lays out harm reduction strategies that special events are required to meet as part of their conditional special event permit approval. And so this is done through the municipal alcohol policy compliance checklist. And that has been attached as appendix to both reports and is what is part of the conditional approval process. And I will be here back off to the side for any questions that you may have.
All right. So do we have a report from?
That's the only presentation related to these next two.
Oh, I see. I gotcha. Okay. I thought we would have a little bit of overview. Okay, well then we have, everybody good?
Council,
I have a
staff,
question.
yes, of course. Councillor Steer.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the presentation. I just want to point out that the municipal alcohol policy that was adopted in early 2021 was the work of a tremendous amount of work from the predecessor, Elise Gocher. And so the policy is widely respected and referred to by a variety of harm reduction groups and research organizations in the province. So this is a policy that has great significance. So I'll get to the question part of it. There was the compliance checklist, which was great. And I'm just curious, by signing the checklist, the organizer confirms their adherence to the checklist. Is there any staff checkup on the checkup list to see that in fact it is not just a check on a box, and in fact the plans that have been brought forward are in as they should be?
Through the chair. So with our special event permit process, the applicants are required to submit proof that they have completed. So for instance, many special events require a safety plan. And so they have to submit that safety plan to staff, and we keep it as part of their conditions to make up their permit. So once all those pieces, such as insurance, safety plans, oh gosh, what else? Foreshore, permission to use the foreshore. Once those are all received, then we issue the permit for them to proceed. So with this checklist, yes, they are checking boxes and signing it, and that will be submitted to us. We will probably also be collecting things that identify, so just to prove that they have met those requirements. So
right. Yeah, that would be my concern, that we ensure that those safety policies that are in place for harm reduction, et cetera, are in place, and that there is proof and evidence of that, not just a check on a box. Would be the intent of the question there. And I just have one more, and it was just out of curiosity. I'm very supportive of the event, by the way. I will be there. Anyways, the question revolves around the 1 a.m. closure time, and I'm just curious as to other establishments that serve alcohol. Is 1 o'clock a common time? Was this a request of the organizer? And I'm just curious as to the other venues that we have in Tofino, such as Tofino Brewery and other establishments that serve alcohol on premise. What their closure times are?
yeah, so I believe that 12:30 is the last point at which you can purchase alcohol, and then generally a half an hour to shut it down and move everybody off site. So that's generally the 1 a.m. point on that application.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions? Yes.
Oh, just a comment to say thanks for taking the time to explain that to us before everything moves forward.
Through the chair, pleasure.
Looking forward to the ska. Excited. Okay, if there are no further questions from council, would somebody like to read the motions?
I'll motion.
Yes, please.
I move that staff be authorized to issue a special event permit conditional of the following requirements being met for use of the Tofino Community Hall to the organizer of the On the Road to Victoria's 24th Annual Ska and Reggae Festival event scheduled to be held March 30th, 2023 at 7:30 p.m. Should I read the provisions?
Yeah, I think you have to read it all.
All right. Provision of an approved Tofino Community Hall rental contract. Provision of a certificate of insurance naming the District of Tofino as additional insured. Provision of an approved Vancouver Island Health temporary food service permit. Provision of an event safety plan. Provision of a completed municipal alcohol policy events compliance checklist. Provision of an improved special event permit for the service of alcohol from the BC Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch.
Seconded by Councillor Steer. Any other comments from council? Seeing none, calling the question, all in favor? None opposed, motion is carried. Carry on.
Yeah, sure. And then to follow that, I would like to move that staff be authorized to issue a special event permit conditional of the following requirements being met for use of the Tofino Community Hall to the organizer of the Pacific Rim Whale Festival launch party event scheduled to be held March 17th, 2023 at 8 p.m. provision of an improved Tofino Community Hall rental contract, provision of a certificate of insurance naming the District of Tofino as additional insured, provision of an improved Vancouver Island Health temporary food service permit, provision of an event safety plan, provision of a completed municipal alcohol policy events compliance checklist, provision of an improved special event permit for the sale of alcohol from the BC Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch.
Seconded by Councillor Anderson. Any further comments from council? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, motion's carried. All right. We have paid parking review and downtown expansion. We have a report from Mr. Rogers.
Now the meeting gets exciting. Good evening, Mayor and Council, once again. For this presentation, we'll be discussing a review of the paid parking from the beach last year in 2022 and the potential 2023 downtown expansion of the program. A bit of a background. When we think about paid parking, it goes back to this strategic priorities of council. Drawn out two of them for this meeting. One is to expand municipal revenue sources, which this program does, and also it's incentivized, prioritized, and emphasizes a rapid transition to sustainable mobility through the pricing of parking. A little bit of background. So these are our estimated but quite accurate revenues from 2022 beach pay parking. So the number bolded there, $316,386 is the estimated net revenue for 2022. That's to be confirmed in the next week or so as they go through the December numbers. Not expected to change materially because December is quite slow. The average net price per stall is about $577. So for 2022, the beach pay parking program brought in $316,000. So beach pay parking, a little bit of background. It's allowed us to reorient some of our staffing resources away from parking enforcement along the beach to other priorities of council. We understand through our Robins, who are our parking consultants, that because we have a resident center program, so our program that was built for Tofino, it's a very unique program. We've received very limited negative feedback on the program, almost none. And for the most part, it's rolled out quite smoothly. In terms of the projections, when this first came into council a number of years ago now, and versus what we're actually receiving, there's a little bit of a discrepancy. Speaking with Robins is based on the lack of data. We haven't done this before, that we had nothing to sort of go for. So a lot of it was a guesstimate. Our enforcement priorities, we have a program that is resident centered that tries to work with people rather than deal with to be strictly enforced, since that reduces your amount of revenue. And then the idea that we ended up with free residential permits, which wasn't in the original plan, that all those impacted the what we expected to receive and what we actually did in 2022. In terms of next year, staff will be recommending that we maintain the free resident pass program for 2023 and a possible review of that program in 2024 to try to understand whether free passes is too much or they're not enough, and whether we may want to reduce that or start charging for one or two or three of those. In terms of increasing the cost of parking, staff would recommend some minimal increases in 2023 for the beach pay parking. And we'll get to that a little bit further in the presentation. For the downtown pay parking, proposed downtown pay parking program, the intent of this program is to ensure that there is availability of parking spaces. In the end, we want to be able people to come downtown and find a place to park. And that's one of the prime drivers of this program. Again, as we look back to the council strategic priorities, a mode shift, so getting people out of their cars when they can, is something that will help the community in terms of parking and congestion. It helps the environment. It's a more healthy way of living. It also provides us, as we discussed, a significant revenue stream for the district to put towards other important district programs. The The structure of the paid parking program in the downtown hasn't been set, but there are some principles that we're looking at, and that these are the type of principles that will go out to the community for consultation if council is still interested in moving forward with this in 2023. So it's basically based, the system is based off our current parking structure in the downtown core, where we have time parking and offshore parking. We're going to overlay the paid parking system over that system, so that it's something that people are familiar with and that we can manage within our existing resources. It's going to be separate from the beach paid parking system, so you won't be able to buy a pass that allows you to park at the beach and the downtown, because they're quite different areas. But the equipment will look the same, so you'll be able to buy an hour of park in the downtown from a kiosk or through your phone, the same as you can do at the beach. We expect that the program will likely be seasonal, so that's 6 months, May to October. That there'll be limited hours of operation between 10 and 6 daily. Outside of those hours, it would be free parking, and then a progressive pricing program to ensure that people, are encouraged to move on after a number of hours, so that we can continue to maintain the spaces that open in the downtown core. As I said earlier, it's very similar to the beach. The proposed right now is very similar to the beach program. Would there be no changes to our offshore parking program? And we're currently working with stakeholders such as SD70 on their lots to see if we can include those within the overall project. I'm just going to pause here because I just spoke a lot, and I just want to know if council has any questions up to now, or would you like me to get from my presentation?
Councillor Sawyer.
I do have a question through the chair. Just curious as to why the beach and town center parking would not be harmonized, so that someone could say purchase a 4-hour pass, park at Chesterman's, 2 hours, rip into town, get groceries, back out.
We explored that option. It's still on the table. Actually, everything's still on the table. This is kind of our proposal to council today. This is where we'd like to start and then go back to community. It gets quite complicated because the needs of parking downtown and parking at the beach are quite different. So in the downtown, we have people who want to come here for our own residents for shopping and to go to the post office, and having a parking system that people can move back forth might clog up the system because we're not progressively pricing them out of there. Whereas a beach destination is separate, and people go there to stay for a day. That would be an issue for us in the downtown core in terms of turning over the spots. So we kind of it's kind of two different systems. Original plan was to have one system. It won't feel like two systems, frankly. Like if you're a resident and you live downtown and you have a resident pass, you'll park in the downtown core. If you're a person who's not resident of down core, a resident of Tofino, you'll come downtown and you'll have a pay by phone or a kiosk option, and you'll pay that way, or you'll avoid the downtown core between 10 and 6 and do your shopping on either side of that. So in that way, it's similar. But I take your point, and it isn't off the table yet, but it makes it a lot more complicated because there are essentially two different needs. Not a probably perfect answer, but
no, it was a good one. Thank you.
Why don't you maybe go ahead, and then maybe everybody can just sort of questions on the go, write them down, and we can stop when you feel like it and take some questions.
Thank you. And just to be clear to council, Mayor and Council, that this presentation is a lot about what happened last year for the beach paid parking program, what we want to do in 2023, and so these details that I'm discussing now are all in draft form. That if we decide to move forward, we'll bring it up to the consultation process.
Maybe just a question about that. Is this the time that you want council feedback on something, or is this sort of an update and then it's another time we could come back with some really strong feedback?
I think this is more structured as an update.
Okay.
For council to sort of ruminate about what we're presenting today, and then as we go through the consultation process, we'll ensure that council is, obviously a major stakeholder in the process, is aware of what we're doing and is involved in that process. If you have any ideas of this afterwards, and feel free to email us and take it into consideration.
Good. Okay.
So in terms of public consultation, we're going to look at things like confirming the actual area, which roads would be under consideration, the pricing of the spaces, whether we want to do a seasonal program or not, whether we want to issue a resident pass for downtown homeowners. We've already been discussions with Ministry of Transportation and Highways about the downtown pay parking. Unfortunately, the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure is not interested in allowing us to run paid parking on Campbell Street, which is awkward because that is our prime parking area where most people want to park. It ends up being a loss of about 65 spaces, and then the numbers that'll come later in the slide deck, we've already accounted for that, but it's about $60,000 net that we'll be losing from the lack of Campbell Street and a portion of First. I think this is something that we'll want to discuss, not necessarily for 2023, but definitely for 2024, and talk to the ministry about Highway 4 devolution, what that might look like, whether we're even interested in it. But I think it's something we can address once the 2023 program is underway. Because we know we can't charge for parking on Campbell Street, we're going to have to ensure that we have very short time limits there, so that the parking turns over quite quickly, so we don't have people parking in front of a lot of our businesses, the retail businesses that need a turnover, and ensuring there's strong enforcement. And so one aspect of the Robbins parking program will be in the areas that are not paid parking in the downtown core. Robbins will still enforce those, so they'll still take it for us. So they'll take take that work off of our bylaw officers, so they again can concentrate on other community issues, and we'll have to run a pretty strong enforcement program along Campbell Street to make sure that that people are still moving through there. Some other issues that we'll have to consider over the coming months would be trailers and RVs, which is again a constant as far as parking is concerned, downtown residential permits, and the addition of a portion of Gibson Street as a paid parking lot. So we're looking at the portion of Gibson Street between First and Second Streets as a potential parking area as is currently undeveloped and no plans in the near future, and as a way to offset some of the loss of Campbell Street. So maybe not be something we have forever, and if we get back to Campbell Street, we could sooner or later Gibson Street will be a road and it'll have parking. But in the meantime, we could perhaps use it as a way to generate some income and provide some more spaces for people to park in the downtown core. So downtown revenue projected for next year. So there's two numbers there. We have the full year program, which would net out about $314,000. And then the seasonal program on the bottom there, and highlighted, bolded, the $212,899. That's what we're projecting next year without Campbell Street, with Gibbon Street included, the teleslot included, is that number. The reason we're suggesting seasonal parking is we just wanted this to be a reasonable program. It's not intended to be punitive to anyone. If you come downtown into Tofino, especially this year, from October through to May, you can park wherever you want. There's so many spaces. And if the intent of this program is to provide spaces, it seems to be irresponsible then to charge people to have those empty spaces. And again, we will go through this in the consultation program, but at this point, council or staff are recommending a seasonal program. This is a little map and a rough area of where we're going. I don't want council to focus too much on these areas because this is yet to be reviewed and refined. But basically, in the areas of yellow would be paid parking. The areas in blue would be time parking enforced by Robbins, and the parking meters are in red. I think, this map requires some refinement. The basic principle is that where we have curb or at least organized parking, we're going to charge for it. Areas that we don't, we're not. And as we redevelop areas like Neil Street, like 4th Street in a couple of years, we may then turn some of those areas into paid parking spaces as well. So in terms of potential revenue for 2023, we combine both programs. The beach program projected at $338,191 and the downtown at $212,899. We come up with about $502,000 per year in annual net revenue for the beach or for the parking program. So options, so these are some of the options that may come back to council through our consultation process. We could increase our net revenue by charging for parking year round at the municipal lots to the tune of about $9,500. As I said earlier, if we went year round parking, we could increase our revenue projected to about $100,000 per year. If we increased our pricing on the beach and got away from our discounted first 2 hours of parking, we could see a projected increase of $110,000 at the beach. And so these are some of the conversations that we'll be having with the community and council over the coming months to determine how we might want to change that number, the 550 number, if we want to. Or if this is a year that we just want to keep everything level, bring in a new program, let everybody get used to it, and then think about increasing in the years to come. So in terms of public engagement, we have very important engagement with the Tla-o-qui-aht First Nations. We're on Tla-o-qui-aht land. Tla-o-qui-aht members use the downtown for parking every day, and the same with the First Nations. Although we're not going to be changing the parking for the nations enjoying the downtown core, it's still important to connect with them early and to ensure that we're on the same page and they're understanding what's happening in downtown core. Other important stakeholders in the downtown core will be the school. We've been talking to the school about the last couple of months about potentially using the lot, their area along 4th Street and their staff lot in the summer times as paid parking areas so that we have provide more parking to the parking community. And the idea at this point would be a win-win-win where we provide more parking to community. Robbins runs it. The money that they collect of those goes back to the school. And so try to work some kind of partnership that the school can then fund something important like a food program or a sports program or arts. Co-op will be an important stakeholder. They'll be important for a number of reasons, but the main one being they have the largest parking lot in the downtown core. And anywhere time you put paid parking somewhere, you're going to push parking other places that's free. And so I've already spoken to the general manager of the co-op and just highlighted that for him, and I expect that we'll be talking to the co-op more about that and whether they decide to go down the same route and do something like similar as we're doing, or whether they decide to keep it free. They have to be involved because what happens downtown is going to affect that, which then is going to affect everybody who shops at the co-op, which is the chamber will be a very important stakeholder. As you know, pay parking is something that is usually quite controversial, and lots of concerns will be raised by small businesses. And how they're going to manage with a pay parking system and their bottom line, and the same for tourism. Going back to the previous public engagement for the beach, it was done very well. We're going to mirror that process because communications and community engagement will be key to this program's success as well. I expect this will be more acrimonious than the beach parking, just due to the nature of downtown and people living there and businesses operating, and parking is generally acrimonious. So the recommendation in front of council today is that staff proceed with community engagement and implementation of the downtown paid parking program.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rogers. Okay, I'm going to open up the council for questions from Mr. Rogers.
Just here. Acknowledging, thank you through the chair, acknowledging that we'll have a more fulsome consultation process, because then I got my 4 pages of notes that I can lay on. But I did have just a quick question around the Highway 4 in the consultation with MOTI. Within the staff report, there it noted that it was a reluctance to engage in that conversation. And I'm curious, because I did the math and I got about 100,000 that we'd be out, but you have 60. But I'm just curious as to the conversation with MOTI and what that reluctance was. And I know there might be a further conversation with the district and the potential for us to be the owners, so to speak. But I'm curious as to what their reluctance was and if there was room for negotiation.
If I may.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Typically, if we're going to have these discussions, we would do it in a closed session.
Okay.
Because it does relate to the relationship with the higher levels of government. So perhaps if council wants more detail regarding that, we can provide it in a closed session.
Thank you. Let's do that then. Yeah.
Perfect. Councillor Sloman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Rogers, for your report. My question was regarding the offshore parking use, and I imagine that the residents living offshore, I imagine their population to increase, and I'm just wondering how we're going to plan for like increased demand from them from parking, and how that's going to affect our budget.
Through the chair to Councillor Sloman, thank you for the question. I don't know that I can answer that. It wasn't considered in the downtown parking program, basically dealing with the spaces that we have in the program that we have. We haven't, as a district, turned our minds to developing more parking in the downtown core for offshore residents, or even for our own residents for that matter. Like as we develop roads, we'll try to formalize parking and add there, but there's no larger plan about how to deal with that. It's a conversation that I know has occurred at many council meetings at the council level. But nothing has come back down through to staff in regards to that. And I don't know, perhaps Ms. Etienne can comment on some of the C2C meetings about parking, or that was more Mr. McPherson.
That's probably good for now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Super. Just a quick, maybe a follow-up question, Jim. How many offshore parking spaces are there now?
Off the top of my head, about 250.
200 in the downtown area.
In the downtown core.
Wow.
Yeah, and it should be noted that, as the First Nations communities are growing, but so is Tofino, we're growing by 25% in the last 5 years. Like it's part of the reason we want to do a pay parking program isn't just for the revenue, it's to stop people from driving downtown.
Right.
In the summertime when they have other alternative options that are viable, like the bus, like walking, like your bike, because no one's building any more downtown space in Tofino, and to build something like a parkade, for example, or underground parking is phenomenally expensive and phenomenally ugly. And so it's one of those situations that pay parking is, again, it does provide revenue, but it isn't the prime driver of it. It's actually to get people to make a different decision sometimes, not even every day. It rains.
Just make all of Campbell Street offshore. Anyway, okay, on we go. You had a question? Yes.
I was just curious about the timed parking along Campbell Street, and I can't remember if you mentioned what that time would be. And if so, is that done in consideration with the business owners along that street, just seeing how long most people would take to get it? Okay.
Yeah, through the chair of council, sorry. Our timed parking areas are basically currently based on the land use next to them. So if there is retail, we have tried to make something that turns over quite quickly. So it's usually 1 to 2 hours. And in certain areas, it's actually the businesses, a whale watching company, for example, or a venture company, and they actually want 4 to 5 hours. And so there's this balance when we put that program into place about what was best. It's my intent not to change what we have, because it's always controversial, and maybe making something that's very similar, or at least it'll be a high turnover area is what I'm trying to say. And then in terms of where the offshore parking is in areas that are more residential, that have more space on there, that are not affecting business. It's an imperfect balance, but it's, parking is an imperfect science.
Excellent. Seeing no more questions, would somebody like to read the recommendation?
Sure. I'll motion that staff proceed with community engagement and implementation of a downtown paid parking program.
Seconded by me. Okay, there we go. And all in favor? Unopposed, motion is carried. Thank you. Moving on, we have temporary use permit for 07/2022 691 Industrial Way. Ms. Kreba, I think.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm just going to take a moment to share my screen. So everyone should be looking at the slide for the temporary use permit for 691 Industrial Way. So just a bit of a background on the subject property. So this is, as I mentioned, 691 Industrial. It is within the M1 zoning, which is the Industrial Park District. This property is subject to 2 development permit areas. So as you can see on the graphic, the red indicates the steep slope, which is triggered at the time of subdivision, and then the green area represents the riparian buffer. The temporary use permit area will not be interacting with that buffer, so it will not trigger a development permit requirement. And then the industrial way, the property is within the industrial way land use designation, as well as within the village containment area. So the proposal includes the continued use of an outdoor patio service area. So there's 2 areas in question. It's the front and the rear. And the applicant is seeking a term of 3 years to allow processing for rezoning applications. So we're considering this application a temporary land use opportunity as a bridge to permanent change of use. So some evaluation highlights from the report. The the proposal generally aligns with the OCP TUP framework, as well as the guiding principles for economic development and the industrial way use, as well as the current use, which is operating under temporary permissions, have afforded the applicant the opportunity to establish feasibility and compatibility with the surrounding land use. I do need to draw attention to a small error in the table in the report. So this value should have read 188.3. So the percentage was accurate in that the total floor area would be the 18.3%, but the meters per square, it would be 188.3 meters squared that we would be looking at the gross floor area for this commercial application. So just to sum up, the applicant is seeking to maintain the seating, which is limited at 70 based on the current zoning for brewery lounge. And then they're also looking to maintain the occupancy. So we have reduced the expanded service areas would potentially increase the occupant load. And so we want to maintain the occupancy as it's granted now. So based on the main lounge and the mezzanine area, a total of 107 is recommended. Public notice went out for this application, both hand-delivered and mailed to surrounding properties. There was also 2 advertisements put in the Westerly News. So there was a January 11th and 18th. And of all of the distribution, we received no letters of response in regards to opposition or support. So staff recommend today that the temporary use permit attached as Appendix 1 to the staff report titled Temporary Use Permit 07-22 for 691 Industrial Way for expanded service area dated January 24th be issued in accordance with TUP conditions for a period of 3 years. And I look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Kreba. Okay, I'm going to look to council for questions from Ms. Kreba. Councillor Steer.
I do have a quick question around, I'm very supportive of the application, but I had some questions and for my clarity and understanding around occupancy load. And in the report, I fully understand that there's no change in the occupancy, but in the occupancy load, which would include, I'm guessing, staff and potential retail customers to the establishment, and that in the note here, the simple math was 107. I'm just curious as to for 2 things. One, how would those potential numbers be indicative of who could be served alcohol, or is that actual number 70 is the only amount that could be served alcohol on premises? And then as the second part of that, who is in charge of the checks on occupancy and that type of enforcement on the premises?
Yes, thank you for the question. So through the chair, so this was an important, it was important for me to distinguish between the occupancy as well as the seating capacity because it's poorly defined in the zoning bylaw. The brewery lounge itself is defined as having a maximum of 70 seats and then having a maximum floor area, but it doesn't regulate how many people can be serviced in that area. So yes, hypothetically, someone could be standing and not necessarily seated. Obviously, the intent of the brewery lounge definition was to limit the number of patrons that are seated and consuming alcohol. But under the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch, their licensing does permit them to serve more than those 70 seats. That being said, the capacity for the indoor, so in one of the appendices, you would have seen that there was a maximum of 70 persons within the interior spaces, but that the outdoor patio increased that to an additional 30 people. So the maximum that they can serve under their current licensing right now, according to the LCRB, would be the 100 persons. So that kind of leads into your second question, whereas who regulates the occupancy, and it's twofold. So the liquor inspector would manage or would regulate, or sorry, would enforce that, as well as the fire chief. So because the occupant load is directly related to fire safety, limiting the number of persons that can be in the space, it's sort of it's watched by a few different jurisdictions or a few different agencies. I hope that answers your question.
It does, and maybe just a follow-up, if through the chair. Yeah, so initially one of the concerns around the numbers of patrons allowed, this went back, and I think Councilman McMaster will remember that there was some concerns about the numbers that were involved, and so maybe I'll check in later, but I'm still trying to wrap around my head my understanding of 70 patrons being seated, and then the number of 100 actually technically being able to be served. And this is just an opinion, that number is starting to look quite high for a tasting lounge, and the intended purpose of that as an auxiliary use of that, the primary use being the manufacture of beer. So I'm just concerned about these numbers and how that's reflected in potentially the temporary use. I'm more than supportive of having these open areas, and I'm just concerned that unless I'm missing something, that is there a chance of increasing the number of people that are actually served? And I guess that's maybe would have been more of a direct question. This was an initial issue in the early days of the actual allowance of this to be expanded in the first place.
Yes, thank you. And if I may, through the chair. So this is why it was important to sort of establish that there was not going to be any additional capacity. There wasn't going to be any additional patrons being served. It was important for the applicant to make that clear that they wanted to just be able to utilize the additional spaces. So that's why we max it. So the 107 is actually based on what their current permissions allow for. So under the temporary service areas, as well as what they are permitted under the zoning, the 107 is what they currently have. So the TUP aside, they could always have, from the beginning, from the inception of the brewery lounge, they could always have people that are seated or standing. They've demonstrated that their intent is to have people seated, and they've never sort of there's no bylaw, there's no complaints on file from them exceeding that or having any issues with more people consuming. It's just enabling them to sort of spread their patrons out into the outdoors as well. So I think that's, there is an ability to reduce that capacity through the temporary use permit if we wanted to limit the capacity to a reduced number. But I think it's important to accommodate their ability to have customers come in for retail. They have 20 to 25 staff, and in the summer times, those staffing numbers are quite high. So it accounts for all staff on the premises as well, and then in addition to people waiting for food that are just on site, maybe having a beer while they're waiting for the food service that is being operated under the other temporary use permit on site. So there's I think that was, staff came to the conclusion that additional amount was reasonable to accommodate the additional, not just for the people seated or standing around. It's the ancillary aspect to their business as well.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Any further questions from council? I see none. I'm quite supportive of this TUP. I look forward to the bridge to permanent change, to be honest. I think it's proven to be a good temporary use permit, my opinion. So would somebody like to read the recommendation?
I move that the temporary use permit attached as Appendix 1 to the staff report titled Temporary Use Permit 0722 691 Industrial Way Expanded Service Area dated January 24th, 2023 be issued in accordance with the TUP conditions for a period of 3 years.
Second by Councillor Steer. Any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, motion's carried. Thank you. No bylaws, business initiated by council members. Committee and external appointment verbal reports. Do we have any verbal reports from council members?
I'll wait till next one.
Seeing none.
I said the last time.
Wait. Okay, perfect. Then we're going to go on to unfinished business. I see none. Question period. Do we have anybody signed up for question period?
We don't have anyone signed up for question period, but we still do have a couple members in attendance via Zoom. So right now I'll just do the same thing as with public comment. I'll open anybody up who's attending via Zoom. If you'd like to take 2 minutes to ask a question about anything that's on the agenda today, you can sign up using the Q&A function. You just enter your name, residential address, and which item you'd like to speak to. So I'll call once, call twice, call a third time, and there are no submissions.
Okay, super. Well, then I'll move us into the closed session. And what I'm going to do also is have a 5-minute break, 5-minute recess. So we'll return at 6:55-ish for a closed session. I'll give people time to exit the room.